Number 5 states, healthcare workers are exposed to many different types of pathogenic and non-pathogenic microorganisms. Which body systems work together to protect the body from pathogens? Now you can see I've underlined this term pathogenic, and you'll see again the term non-pathogenic and pathogens all have this same root, pathogen. So what is a pathogen? We need to know this vocabulary in here to make sure that we get this question correct. So a pathogen is more commonly known as a germ. So when you think pathogen, think germ. And so examples of those are bacteria and viruses. Another term that you'll see in the question is microorganisms, and let's make sure we know what that is. Micro is small, like with a microscope you see small things, and organism is a living thing. So microorganisms are very small living things, such as that bacteria that we talked about a moment ago. So the question asks us which body systems work together to protect the body from pathogens. So in this case, we're probably talking about bacteria because the question mentioned microorganisms. But again, we're just talking about what helps us fight off germs. So we look at our answer choices and we have these different systems that are listed here. And I do want to point out that the vascular system and circulatory system are the same system. So I'm not going to explain those twice, but we need to look at what these systems all do to make sure that we can answer this question appropriately. So again, vascular and circulatory are the same, so I'll only explain that one once. But we're going to go through the function of these different systems real quick. So the first system that's explained here is the muscular system. And you can see our muscular system has all of these different muscles in it. And there are actually 3 different types of muscle tissue in the muscular system. And those are cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. When we think about the muscular system, most of us just think about skeletal muscular tissue. But there's also cardiac muscle, which makes up the heart, and smooth muscle, which makes up our other moving organs, such as the stomach. So these different types of muscles have the jobs that are at the bottom of the page here. They produce body movements, they maintain posture, and they produce body heat. So remember, when we think of muscles, think of moving parts, the moving parts of the body. Then our next system that we're going to go over is the digestive system. And you can see here all the different parts of the digestive system. And the digestive system's job is to break down food and absorb nutrients and water. Now, the small intestine is where most things are absorbed. So our small intestine absorbs most of our nutrients out of our food. The stomach breaks it down, and the large intestine absorbs a lot of the water out of our food. So this is the job of the digestive system. I do want to point out, and it's important because going on to our next slide, I'll explain why it's important, but any food that passes through the digestive system that is not absorbed by the small intestine or large intestine does come out the other end. This is how fecal matter is formed. Fecal matter meaning, in more layman's terms, poop. So remember that any food that is undigested, that is unused, is not absorbed by the body, does come out the other end. So that is how we make that type of waste material. And I bring this up because our next body system is the excretory system. And you can see its function says removal of waste from the body. But don't get confused there with this word waste. Waste in this case is going to be waste that is filtered out of the blood and made into urine. So our excretory system makes number 1, makes urine, makes pee. And our digestive system is responsible for making number 2, making poop. So don't let those two confuse you. Our excretory system, its job is actually to filter the blood and take waste materials out of the blood and put those into the bladder down here at the bottom where they're stored until we get rid of them by urinating. So, pardon me, our kidneys are actually going to filter the blood, and you can see these large blood vessels that are going to flow through and allow our blood to go into the kidneys and then be filtered, and whatever is filtered out, excess waste material, excess salt, sugar, excess water, all of these different things are going to go down through the ureters into the urinary bladder where those waste materials are stored and released whenever you urinate. Okay, So excretory system removes waste from the body in the form of urine. Our next system is the circulatory system, and you can see a lot of different functions here. Our circulatory system is made up of the heart and the blood vessels, and the circulatory system, the word circulatory has circulate in it. To circulate means to move around and around. So most of us know that the heart pumps the blood flows throughout the body. But what gets confusing is, why does this happen? Well, the blood needs to circulate because it carries materials to and from different body parts. So it carries oxygen, nutrients, waste materials. As we saw in our excretory system, we needed the blood to carry those waste materials to the kidneys where it could be filtered out. So blood carries things from one place to another to wherever it needs to go. And that is the important job of our circulatory system, is to just transport materials throughout the body. You'll also notice that on this third bullet, it says the blood contains cells that fight off infections. Now this sounds important for our question at hand, infections, being caused by germs. So we'll keep that in mind when we go back to the question in a minute here. But it says it contains cells that fight off infections. If you've heard of white blood cells, those white blood cells are the types of blood cells that help us to fight infections, like bacteria and viruses. Mostly bacteria, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So we have our circulatory system. You can see the other functions it has with helping with regulating body heat and also keeping our pH and our ion levels relatively stable by moving them around. It keeps them all mixed up. Okay, so let's look at our next body system, the endocrine system. And you're going to see here a lot of the same word, gland. And a gland produces hormones. So the job of our endocrine system is to create hormones. And hormones are chemical messengers that send out a signal to the body saying, hey, you need to start doing more of this or less of that, and it just helps to keep your body in balance. And that word that means balance in the body is homeostasis. You may have heard of that word before. Homeostasis is that balance in the body to keep everything very stable and calm so that things aren't all irregular. And that's the job of the endocrine system, to make those hormones to create stability within the body. Our next body system is the immune system. The immune system's job is to fight disease. Now, it also can be to prevent disease. But if you notice here, we've got these different parts of the body, and these T cells and B cells are those white blood cells that we were talking about before, and these are blown up really big so you can see what they look like, but these circulate throughout our circulatory system, and they help to fight off infection. All right, there are different parts of the body here. The lymph nodes, you might have heard of those, like when your throat gets swollen when you're sick, the sides of your neck where that swelling is, those are typically swollen lymph nodes. There are also lymph nodes up here in your neck as well. So these are different parts of your immune system, and your immune system's job, again, is to fight disease. And then finally, we have our reproductive system here. And the reproductive system, its job is to do exactly what it says, to reproduce. And to reproduce is to make offspring, to make children. So the reproductive system's function is for making babies. So let's go ahead and go back to our question now and decide which of these makes the most sense as far as our answers are concerned. So which body systems work together to protect the body from pathogens? So again, our pathogens are those germs. So let's look at our systems again. Now, we said the vascular system, which is our circulatory system, does have those white blood cells that help fight disease. So that one looks pretty good. And then we have B, our digestive and excretory system. Well, the digestive system is to get nutrients, and our excretory system is to get rid of waste materials. But those don't have anything to do with getting rid of those pathogens. So I don't think B is going to be our correct answer. Then we look at C, circulatory. All right, well, that's the same as vascular, and we know that one was good. All right, So our circulatory system does have those white blood cells that help fight disease, and our immune system, which also has those same white blood cells in them that fight disease. So that one's looking really good. So we're going to keep C in mind. And then D, endocrine system, which was to make hormones that help regulate our body systems, and that doesn't sound like it's getting rid of pathogens. And reproductive, which is to produce babies, and I know that's definitely not it. So we're going to take away D. So if I look at our two remaining answer choices, A and C, the muscular system is to move the body, right? Its function is to move. So that's probably not dealing with our pathogens there, which leaves us with C as being the answer that makes the most sense, and it is the correct answer. So for number 5, if we know what all these different organ systems do, and we know what pathogens are, then we can figure out that the answer choice is C.